How do you deal with new trauma? In the journey of healing ourselves, we focus a lot on past traumas, but what do we do with new trauma? Years ago, I was married and my new wife and I had got the news that she was pregnant. And this was after I had quit drinking. I was about 2.5 or 3 years sober and things were going really well. I had a new wife. I was sober and healthy and mentally feeling good. And we had the exciting news that we were bringing a new baby into the world. And to my happiness, it was a little girl. I was so excited, beyond excited. And time goes on. We were going through the pregnancy, and towards the end of the pregnancy, when she was just about 8 months, she couldn't feel the baby moving. And so we went to the doctor, and the doctor let us know that the baby had passed. Very, very difficult, extremely heart-wrenching. We had to go through the birth, and I got to hold my little girl. She was about 5 pounds. Now, the reason I'm telling this story is I had worked really hard to overcome a lot of past trauma, and things were going really well. Well, life, as it does, always comes at us, and I was hit with an extremely difficult situation. Now, in that case, as we know, you often come across people who quit smoking, or they start a new diet, or they quit alcohol, and we come across that person, or maybe it's even ourselves, and we realize that, we didn't stick with our commitment. We fell off the wagon, or we started smoking again, or we didn't stick with the diet. And the reason for that is, while we might have kicked the habit, we didn't actually put anything in place in order to deal with the past trauma that was causing those issues. And so the reason I bring this up is, what do we do when new trauma comes? And so for me, in my case, we had lost the baby, and I had a choice internally. I could have gone back to drinking. It would have been a perfect excuse, such a tragic thing. I could have melted down, but I didn't. And I clung to newly formed habits that I created and used methods to help me process what was actually happening. So instead of forcing it down or running away from it, I was actually able to feel the emotions while it was happening and process the trauma in a healthy way, so that down the road it didn't cause me more issues. So I think oftentimes when we say, hey, let's address that past trauma, we're focusing on what happened in the past, but we're not creating habits that will help us overcome what comes in the future. And so I want to talk a couple of things about that are really, really important. So when we address and we have new trauma come, there's a couple of things that we should look at. One, allow yourself to feel and process the emotion. When receiving bad news, it's normal to feel a range of emotions like shock, sadness, anger, or confusion. You have to acknowledge those feelings. You don't want to run from them or cover them up or mask them or use old habits. Like for me, I would have covered it up by drinking. We're going to feel those emotions. They are going to come. And we have to teach ourselves how to understand why we're feeling those emotions and how we can properly process them. If you heal your past, it doesn't mean that your future trauma is going to be easy to deal with. It is going to be challenging. However, if you teach yourself how to address what has happened and come to terms with it and go through the process, you can then accept it and move on and not have those issues come back and bite you. We still experience, the 5 stages of grief, and it's important to know these so that you can observe yourself going through these stages. Practice meditation, self-care, don't neglect yourself. This is very important. Make sure you engage in positive activities that are not going to mask the feelings that you're going through. Engage in activities that promote well-being and mindfulness, such as exercise, meditation, and hobbies that you enjoy. Focus on taking care of yourself both physically and emotionally. These practices can be a source of strength, helping you navigate the emotions and challenges tied to the bad news. The purpose of all of this is to help you process what has happened in a healthy way, versus running from or pushing down the problem like we might have done in the past. The 5 stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Even though we've healed, we're still going to deal with the 5 stages of grief. Denial. This is often the initial reaction to a loss. It's a way for our mind to cope with overwhelming emotions by refusing to accept the reality of the situation. People might think, this can't be happening to me. Anger. Once the denial wears off, feelings of anger and resentment may arise. Questions like, why me? The feeling of frustration with the situation or others involved can be common during this stage. Bargaining. This stage involves attempts to negotiate with a higher power or fate, making promises or bargains in exchange for a reversal of the situation or relief from the pain. Depression. Depression. Feelings of deep sadness and hopelessness can emerge as the reality of the situation sinks in. This stage reflects the emotional weight of the loss, and it's not necessarily a sign of mental illness, but rather a normal response to grief. And finally, acceptance. Eventually, some people reach a stage of acceptance where they come to the terms with the loss and begin to find ways to move forward. It doesn't mean the pain has completely gone away, but there's an understanding of the reality and the willingness to adapt. As I said, this is a very difficult time for myself, and it was with a lot of hard work and dedication and resilience that I was able to get through it, and thankfully get through it without turning back to alcohol or other negative substances or ways of behavior. I know that dealing with hard things can be extremely difficult, but what we don't want to do is go back and create more trauma that we have to deal with and overcome in the future. Thanks for letting me share my story. As always, like and subscribe for more videos like this.